Rafael L. Silva. Ronen Rubinstein. From Station 19 and 911, Tracy Toms. And we have the absolute honor of inviting Assistant Chief of the LAFD, Los Angeles Fire Department, Katie Kepner. Hey. Woo! So, sorry. So my first question is kind of for the actors, how did you get involved with your shows? Were you excited by being on a firefighting show? Had you ever been involved in anything around firefighting prior to being on your shows? And we'll kind of start with Brian.
I actually hit the first responder trifecta with this show. I have played a lot of police officers, I played an EMT, and I really, really loved 911, the original show. And I was looking to do like a guest star role or something in that vein. So I was actually here at Noe House when I got the audition notice for a series regular on this spinoff of 911. And I was just like, this is amazing. And as I kept reading the breakdown, it's like, trans firefighter, what? You know, I'd never seen a first responder as a series regular that was trans, and I was like all about it, especially in this universe because I was such a big fan of the show. So I did like a traditional audition for it. I went and I read, and I thought, usually when you do the process for auditioning for a regular like this, you do an audition, then you do another audition, you do a chemistry read, you meet the producers, and I think that they were really trying to get this show going, that I did the one audition and then found out that I booked it. So it was an amazing experience, and I was very excited to be involved, very excited.
Awesome.
I had no idea what was happening, to be quite honest. When I was living in New York. I was auditioning for plays, and I was up for a part for a play. And the day that I found out I did not get the part, I found out that I was coming out to test for Lone Star, and I was like, "What? What is Lone Star?" And then I came out to test. I auditioned. I have a chemistry read with this guy right here. And I think it went well. And then the next day I find out, yeah, it did. And then the next day I found out that I booked the show. The following week I started shooting. So to be quite honest, I mean it. I had no idea what was going on. And I kind of started training as the show was going. We moved really fast. They were already shooting when I booked the show. So when it got to my scenes, we got to get the ball rolling, and it all happened really fast. Yeah, it was fun. It's been fun.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out today. Yeah, I mean, you know, when you see an audition for first responder show, spin-off of a major hit like 911, you know, Angela Bassett, Peter Krause, and then on top of everything, Ryan Murphy. You know, it's sort of like, where do I sign up? So, you know, I was very lucky, had a couple auditions. Before I knew it, I was chemistry reading with Rob Lowe. That was nerve-wracking. And then the next day, they're like, you're going to be on 911 Lone Star. And I was like, all right. And then we flew out to New York literally the next week and started shooting. And day one was on a 50-floor skyscraper in Times Square with Rob Lowe. So I was like, all right, so this is how we're starting. The rest is going to be easy, which it definitely wasn't. Yeah, that's sort of the journey, and here we are now. Just got picked up for season 4. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey. Yeah.
Okay, I'll start with 911. So audition came in for 911 to play the wife of a firefighter. So I didn't know who I was the wife of because I had not seen the show yet. But Aisha and I have known each other for a long time. So I get in the room, and they're like, "Yeah, so you're the wife of Henrietta. That's Aisha." I'm like, "Aisha Hines, turn the camera on. Turn the camera on. Let's go. Let's do it." So I did it. Okay, great. And then I left, and it is so funny because it's so up my alley. that when I parked and I was walking into the audition, there's another girl I always audition against, but she's very, very like girly girl pretty. And she saw me come and she said, she was like, I knew, I read it, and I was like, this is the Tracy Thoms part. I'm gonna try to do it like Tracy Thoms. I'm gonna go in there and do my best Tracy Thoms, and here you come, Tracy Thoms. Ain't you busy? And I was like, no, sorry. And I was like, sorry, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm probably gonna book it, but good luck to you. Because it's just, it was so like me, you know what I mean? And there are other roles I go in for, and she's there, and I'm like, why are you here? Because she's going to book it, and then she books those. So it goes, you know, you have those people. But then when I was leaving, I texted Aisha, and I said, so I just auditioned to play your wife. And she's like, oh, please, please, can you be my wife? Please be my wife. Please, will you be my wife? Can you be my wife? I'm like, I already auditioned for it. So, yes, obviously I'll be your wife. So then she called Tim Minear, and then next thing you know, I booked that one. Now with Station 19, Krista Vernoff is a showrunner on that show. And one of my first jobs out of school, almost 20 years ago, was Wonder Falls, and Krista was a writer on Wonder Falls. So since then, anytime she can get me in something, she does. So she texted me and was like, I have this role on Station 19. It's like the biggest guest star I've ever written. Will you do it? And I'm like, yes. And I didn't even know what it was. I was like, sure. And then we got the dates in the script, and people are like, you're in 45 pages of this episode. I'm like, okay, so it must be like a hostage situation or something where everybody's in the whole thing. Because no, it's just you and one other actor every time. I'm like, what am I doing? And they're like, you're the therapist. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm the therapist on Station 19 for all the firefighters on that show. So it's very confusing to people I know that I'm on 2 firefighter shows with 1s and 9s in the title. But here I am.
She's a doctor on both shows as well. And then Katie, very different process of getting into the firefighting business. You've been at the fire department for over 20 years. How did you get started?
Yes, well, I booked my role at age 24. Actually, I knew I wanted to do this since I was 15, 16 years old. I'm one of the lucky few that knew from a young age exactly what I wanted to do and was able to pursue my dream from that age. So I became an explorer, which is like a junior firefighter, and that's where I started learning about the tools, the equipment, all of the procedures, policies, how much physical strength you actually needed to have to become a firefighter. And I was able to gear everything I did from that point on towards getting my dream job. So going to school, I got my AA degree in fire science, I got my bachelor's degree. I went to a private fire academy, I became an EMT. I did everything I could to build my resume to become the most highly qualified candidate for the job. It took me 7 years. I took my first test when I was 18, and it's such a competitive career that it took me 7 years, so I got hired when I was 24. I have 22 years on the job now, and every day I go to work, I'm smiling because it truly is my dream job.
What was training like? And then I will ask you all what your version of training was. It sounds like you kind of trained on the job.
A little bit.
So what was training like for you?
It's very extensive. For our academy in LA City, when I came on, it was a 20-week academy, and very physically and mentally exhausting. They take you to almost your breaking point, or to what you may think is your breaking point, so that they know you're mentally tough enough to get past that. Not only is it a physically challenging career, but we see a lot of things that other people don't. So they have to make sure that we're able to be healthy, both physically and mentally and emotionally. So it's very extensive physically. I trained for a lot of years to be able to get through that academy, and it was still very tough, but well worth it, and it's important. So.
And then what was training like on the show? Because I know that you train alongside actual firefighters as well.
Yeah, our first training was me, Ronen, and Natasha Karam, who plays Marjan on the show. We went to Van Nuys and trained with some firefighters, led by Mike Bowman, who's one of our fire techs on the show. And I felt I felt like I'm strong. You know, I got in pretty good shape for the L word. And I'm like, let's go. And like we started to do just a little bit of the firefighter stuff. And this guy comes over and he picks up this thing and he hands it to me. And I'm like, oh. Oh, I see. These little gym muscles is not going to do it. I got to, like, step it up. So it was interesting to, physically understand, like, just how different and the level of strength that you need to have to physically do the job. But then also just talking to them and spending the day with them and just sort of hearing how they deal with the things that come along, whether it's something very traumatic or even, you know, lots of downtime that they have in between things and, like, how you can be ready and stuff like that. That was something that was interesting to learn. And then for this season, Paul had some health issues, and so he had to redo the firefighter training, the CPAT test, and just going through that, which is, I think, 8 or 9 stations of different, like, physical activities that are directly related to the job. I had to, like, get ready for that, you know. And again, it was one of those things where, like, I felt I'm strong, I can do this, and I realized, woo, wow. So it gave me a way deeper level of appreciation for the people who do this every day. You know, really thankful for the commitment that they have for this job.
I feel like my training was a little bit different given that I play police officer in the show. So it's really interesting. So yeah, just like what Brian said, I grew up playing sports. I grew up being physically, active. So that sort of, I thought I understood what that meant until I actually had to understand what police officers have to do on a daily basis. So training for that, one, and also two, I think the journey. So as I said, I learned on the job quite literally as we were shooting scenes where I needed to be a police officer, but also a police officer not only in uniform, but in mind, in heart, and in the presence. Because, I personally didn't grow up around firearms. I didn't know what they felt like. I didn't know what they sounded like, what they smelled like, how powerful that is, right? That instrument that can take a life. So as I was being trained by our tech advisor, season 1, Chick Daniels, I met up with him and we sat down and he told me, it's like, this is absolutely, he didn't have to tell me this, but you have to say, this is not a toy. This is not something to just hold it without the dignity that it deserves, because it is a powerful tool. So learning how to shoot, learning how to read as in physicality of people, because when you're responding to a call, you don't know what you're walking into. You don't know if this is going to be the last day of your life, and that's right as a first responder. So getting into that mindset, it took a lot of reading. I read the Austin Police Manual, which was like 700 pages, and I only say that because there's a specific style of writing which also helps in the way that police officers also talk. So that was extremely helpful. I straight up went to YouTube as well. I watched thousands of hours of dash cam footage, like also the body cam footage as well. I wanted to see what it felt like in the moment when things hit the fan and it goes sideways. I want to know what that sounds like, what that smells like, what that looks like, and what that feels like. And it is it's a different world. And in order to step into that uniform, you really have to respect their job. And as an actor, I'm speaking specifically as an actor. And yeah, it took a lot of emotional and mental breakthroughs in order to really portray that respectfully.
Yeah, so the first day was with Brian and Natasha, and it was cool because we actually got to go out on a couple of real-life calls and get to see sort of how they are in real time, and it was intense, man. But also there was sort of this like calm, cool, collected thing about them that, it's just sort of another day on the job. And I think the biggest thing that I took away was how calm they stayed, and it was very much like following protocol. And then they went in, they came out, paramedics took over, and then we were in the truck within a couple minutes. So that was really cool to see, because you don't really see that side of it. And then I was very lucky to, halfway through season 2, TK got to become a paramedic. So my whole sort of education had to get flipped. And we have a med tech on set. Her name is Toby. She's actually sort of become my like on-set mom, and she teaches me every single day, especially when we have like really big medical rescues, or we've done some crazy stuff on the show, especially medically. Like saving a lady with a teapot on a plane as it's going down. So that's sort of something you have to learn on the fly, and a lot of the times our med tech is like, I've seen some of this in real life, and other times she's like, I've never seen any of this in real life. So we have to sort of adapt and figure out like how we would do it if it really happened. So a lot of it is learning on the go and staying on your toes, and yeah, it's really cool to be able to sort of learn about both sides of it, and it's cool that you're a paramedic from the fire department. So yeah.
And then, Tracy, your character on Station 19 is a former firefighter who's also there listening to the troubles of the firefighters at Station 19. So what was that kind of like to get into character? Because you are playing someone who's dealing with the duality of not being able to be a firefighter anymore, but also like counseling the people in that house.
Well, yeah, it's the way that Krista writes. She's always writing how I think anyway.